What if I told you the biggest thing holding you back isn't your body, isn't your lifestyle, and isn't your career, but it could be your childhood and what type of memories, traumas, or stories that are still lagging on and causing you stress? My name is Coach Dimitri. Welcome to the Pure Motivation Podcast Show. And today we're going to talk to you about how your past can shape your mindset and how your mindset can be worked to help claiming your future. June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and I think it's very important that we take this opportunity to talk about some discussions that sometimes are taboo, sometimes are quiet, and sometimes are not really brought up to the public. And we want to make sure we can teach people how to deal with these stresses. We want to make sure that we can help them with their emotions, their mindset, especially if they're fathers. But what if your childhood is still running the show? What if the stories you're telling yourself are sabotaging your mindset and your health, marriage, and success right now? And today we have a bunch of tips and a special guest which is going to put it all together for you. Now, before I begin, I'm going to read through some of the points here from my amazing guests. Not only is he a respected psychologist with over 30 years of experience, but he's also a founding member of Pure Motivation Fitness from the start. That's right. And he's a very close friend of mine. He's a registered psychologist, a member of the Canadian Academy of Psychologists in Disability Assessment, and he's helped countless individuals overcome depression, anxiety, and addiction. He's an author, he's a speaker, he's a dedicated husband, and he's a father of two incredible young men. His insights on the mind-body connection are deep, practical, and relatable. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guest, Jonathan Siegel. Welcome to the Pure Motivation Podcast Show.
So wonderful to be here, Dimitri. We haven't seen each other for a while, and it's great to reconnect.
You got it. And usually we talk about, I bring forth the 5 M's of self-mastery. And we talk about mindset, your mission, we talk about muscle, we talk about macros, and your marriage. And today we're going to talk strictly about mindset, because we want to make sure we can help people out.
One phrase that I came across years ago, and it really stuck with me. It was the idea that the skill set without the mindset will leave you upset.
I remember you told me this many times.
Yeah, and so this idea of the mindset is fundamental because there's an energy. We're not automatons. We're not mechanical beings. We have a spirit.
Yeah, we have emotion.
We have emotions. We have thoughts. We have behaviors. But and it's all physical. When you start to look at the human body, it's remarkable that anything actually works at all. I mean, there's in the brain alone, 3.25 pounds, there's 80 billion neurons, trillions of connections.
Right.
How is it all working?
So it happens sometimes subconsciously.
Most of it is happening subconsciously. So we wake up in the morning, we're breathing, God willing, our heart is working, and that's all happening at the subconscious level. So something is doing that, whether you call it evolution or a higher power or a God or universal intelligence. So an entry point into mindset, I'd like to start with the idea, since we're talking about both theory and practicality, what is the foundation when we wake up in the morning for a good mindset? And there's one word, it's gratitude. So for example, think about it for a moment. I woke up this morning and I have my eyes. Mm-hmm. That's a miracle when you think about it, how it's all working. And so I think that for a proper mindset is for each person when they wake up in the morning to consider, before they rush and start their day, is to stop for a moment and reflect on and to give gratitude to whatever that is.
Whichever spirit, person, place, whatever.
Person, spirit, place, higher power, a God, anything. But the idea is starting with the position of gratitude. Why? Because it slows the process down. And you mentioned that men's mental health. Well, it's possible for people to have their lives, running their lives with, like they're chicken without a head.
Right.
It's so busy. So how do we, reactiveness.
Self-sabotage. And that's what today's about, there's kind of 5 major phases of life. Childhood, young adults, career, family, midlife, and then the stuck phase. And I feel that I don't care what profession you're in, I don't care what you do, I don't care if you're happily married, you're not married, we all go through a stuck phase. And today we want to break that down because there's psychological patterns, there's traits, there's past traumas that shape us or sabotage us, right? And how we think, live, and act make a big difference on this. So before we jump into our topics, I want the viewers to kind of learn a little bit about you, right? What's something fun that most people would never guess about you, even after meeting you?
I'm not so certain the answer to that question, but I'm certain that my wife of 40 years would know the answer because of course, she sees things about me that others don't see.
100%. So if you weren't a psychologist then, what would you be doing with your life right now?
I really enjoy math and studying math. And I look back and I think to myself, now that I'm 69 years old, if I hadn't moved in this particular direction, what else would have been a good fit? And I think that being a math teacher or something along the lines of doing math would have been really interesting.
So I know you may not have the full answer, but psychologically, why do humans pause when it comes to their health?
Let me attempt to answer it first with a quote by Mark Twain.
Let's do it, baby.
Who said that the problem with youth is that it's wasted on the young. So I think the answer to your question very simply is that people do not see in more likely than not, the seriousness of the situation as clearly as you're seeing it. So people think, well, it's really not like my car is broken down.
So it's a perception understanding?
I think so. People, and here's a big issue. We think that when we're speaking, other people hear what we have to say. They're not listening, but also don't have that level, perhaps, of insight and depth of knowledge. And the problem is that sometimes people, Dimitri, I don't think learn until they hit a bottom.
So in your experience, when you meet with people who had either addiction problems, anxiety, depression, if you had to give a percentage, how much of the percentage does childhood play?
It's significant. In fact, Freud said the child is father to the man, meaning that we grew up in childhood with a particular framework, a particular orientation, a particular conversation. There's a very big difference between someone who grows up in an impoverished environment. And I'm not talking about just not having money. I'm talking about an environment where there isn't a focus on learning and well-being and health and love, versus someone who grows up in an environment where all that matters is beating other people up because it shapes one's worldview.
So I got some stats here that I'm going to read, and then I want to get your opinion. Men account for nearly 75% of suicide deaths in Canada. Young men aged 19 to 29 are at significantly higher risk for depression and anxiety. Only about half of Canadians with a mental disorder receive professional help. And nearly 1 in 10 men experience depression or anxiety, and those are just the ones who are diagnosed. So if we're talking about mental health awareness, is depression a real thing?
Depression is a real phenomenon, and it's important to recognize that words can be sometimes used loosely and sometimes used rigorously. We sometimes look in the nature of our questions to see, is it this or is it that, which is a dichotomous variable, but more often than not, much of what happens in our brains and our minds is on a continuous scale. So the simple answer is it's real in the sense that, to give you an example, if you did not get any sleep, kept up at night forcibly, at some particular point in time, what do you think would happen to the person's emotions and thoughts and behaviors? What do you think would happen?
Aggression would kick in, fidgety, not happy, not motivated, because they just want to sleep.
Is that real?
Yes, because we all need sleep.
So that's the simple answer to your question, is depression real? Because for those who are going through a biological disturbance, it is very real. There's both biological and psychological. So for sure, for the sleep, we're dealing with how the cells of the body need some rest and recuperation. And then when they don't get that recuperation, the biology, then the psychology kicks in. There are different degrees. When someone is just sad and upset and stuck, that may not be depression or clinical depression. That may be that they're stuck and they're showing some of the symptoms of what we normally characterize as depression. But if a person crosses a threshold into a major depression, that would be an example like, maybe not the best example, but if you take a cucumber and put it in brine, at some point, that cucumber becomes a pickle.
Gotcha.
There's a point in time when the biology changes so much that psychology alone won't do it, and it needs a kickstart. I want to emphasize this, how important it is for people to get exercise, to come to your gym. Ask people to fill in a survey of how you feel before you come into the gym and how you feel after you leave. Mm-hmm. And I submit or assert that most people, after they finish a workout, are going to say they feel better.
100%. Why do so many men in particular suffer in silence? Is it the typical ego? Is it typical men are physical, women are emotional?
When one does look at literature and differences between men and women, girls and boys, even from a young age, we generally see that whether it be biological or also socialization, girls, women have a better ability or a tendency to talk things out with one another, whereas men, maybe culturally, I'm responsible for being a man and handle it ourselves.
So what would you say to someone who feels they've fallen too far off track? What do you say to them when they just feel like, and this usually happens, and I don't want to keep talking about after 40s, but 40, 50, 60, even 70, what do we say to those people who just feel like, I'm too far back?
Part of what is maybe a good idea is to let the person know that you're there and will be there for them, and that the sunshine will come even if right now all they can see is gray. It's possible that people can be in such a state that no matter what we say to them, won't make a difference. But being there, being by their side, saying I'm here, may actually do more than any type of speaking in that particular moment.
But is there a connection between psychological stress and physical breakdown in the body?
It is connected. And that's because the body and the mind are connected. They can't be separated. If we didn't have, our brain wasn't working, we wouldn't be here. And physicians are in a better position to determine, and that's why we see if a person is overweight, and it's more linked to diabetes, and then people don't feel as well, they don't feel as young and as healthy in this. So it becomes a reciprocal relationship. The better I feel physically, the better I feel mentally, and then when I feel better mentally, I can have the motivation to come in and do physical work. So the challenge is to get people onto the right habits.
I learned something from Tony Robbins, and he talked about state. And he said at the bottom of the state, there's your physiology. If you're not moving your body, if you're not doing something physical, you will never get into a positive, happy state, no matter who's feeding you, how much money you got. To the left side of the quadrant, he said it's our focus. Are we looking for wide focus or narrow? Yes, you came from a dysfunctional family. Yes, you didn't have a parent, but does that mean your life is done? Or can you save other people in the world because of what you've learned? And then language is on the right. And language is important because we say stuff like, oh, look, I look fat. Or you know what? Look at me. I'm going to be like this forever. And the words we say to people into ourselves can change that state. What would you say to someone right now when they've fallen off track? Do you come in with my approach and it's like, hey, how are you? Tell me what's up. Let's talk about it. Let's throw our cards on the table. Because I think sometimes my approach works with some personalities and some, it'll blow them away.
Well, I think that's a good point, that there isn't one approach that works for everyone, and that's why we have all this variety in our lives. And that's a really important point. The general principle in terms of how we handle it is to let people know that they don't have to do this alone. That's the general principle. And that there is a solution. It's important to know that there is a solution. Are we going to be living in the problem, or are we going to be living in the solution? That's a question.
Love that. I keep thinking as a pusher, as a motivator, that you can, come on, let's go.
Some people you can.
Right. And some people thrive on it.
Some people thrive on it.
And call me, they're like, hey, I'm signing up right away.
Absolutely.
I need you. Kick my ass.
People like to buy. They don't want to be sold. You keep on creating the possibility of what's available.
So the final part of this segment is going to be something you could take away with you guys. It's called the invisible psychologist. Okay. And we're talking about tools that people can use when they're alone to be led. So you mentioned that, not everyone has a coach. Some people don't have the financial resources. Some people don't have a spouse that's supportive. Some people don't have friends that they can reach out to. But in moments of panic, in moments of fear, shame, emotional fog, is there any simple things that you can say, you know what, Dimitri, I'm going to give your viewers 1 or 2 easy tips that they can try to follow?
I can share what worked for me, and even though what worked for me. And while it's wonderful to draw strength from many different sources, friends, family, what worked for me in part was creating and staying connected with a higher power, God. Whatever word works for the individual. We need time out by ourselves, but when we're around others, maybe we get ideas that we otherwise wouldn't.
These are 5 or 6 things that I've kind of used in my past to kind of help me out. A few of them have been things I've learned recently. One is called box breathing. 4 seconds, breathe in. You hold for 4 seconds. You exhale for 4 seconds. You hold for 4 seconds. One of them is naming the emotion. And I read this in a psychology book. Simply just saying, I'm feeling anxious right now. I'm feeling anxious right now inside your mind, or I'm getting nervous right now, or I'm feeling insecure right now. And if you can kind of tell yourself that this is happening, you're aware of the situation. And then the last one, I think, is going to be really, really good for those who are stuck with bad habits. And it's a personal phone alarm. So we have control to set these in our phone. You can set an alarm in the morning, which wakes you up. It says, today's going to be great no matter what. And you can even set another one that rings in 5 minutes from that time that says, remember rule number 1. Well, thanks so much for coming, man. If anyone has any comments, I'd love to hear what you thought about this episode. If you're stuck and need help and you don't live in the Vaughan area, reach out to Coach_Dimitri on Instagram or Facebook or anywhere you are. Message me back. I'm happy to sit down with you and set up a strategy call. If you're stuck and you live in the city of Vaughan and you want to try something new, come try us out, Pure Motivation Fitness. I guarantee you'll enjoy the boutique experience. But until next time, I'll catch you in the next episode. Peace and take care, guys. Bye for now.